Hi, I'm Adam Smith and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about digital minimalism, and particularly we're going to talk about regaining time and attention that has been given to your mobile phone. I have gone through a process where I have really intentionally over the last few weeks and months tried to reduce my mobile phone usage. So I've gone from a situation where if I wasn't working on something, then I would have my mobile phone in my hand or in my pocket at all times, that I was spending 6, sometimes even more hours a day looking at social media, watching YouTube videos, things like that. So I hope you don't think this video is going to be a case for getting rid of those things entirely, because as I'll talk about later, I do still use social media, I still look at my phone, I still watch videos on my phone. Instead, it's going to be about how we can adjust our relationship, so how we can learn to live healthily with this incredibly powerful device in our pockets and available all times. So why is it necessary to look at our relationship with digital media? I've recently read 2 really interesting books, one of which was Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport, and one of which was The Shallows by Nicholas Carr. And both of these books talk about the idea that our attention has been captured by our mobile devices, by the internet, and that we are no longer able to really focus on deep work and deep thinking and deep writing in the way that we might have been in the past, not to give all of our attention to a singular task when just meters away from us or in our pocket or in our hand, we have something that is so perfectly tuned to capture our attention. And both of these authors say that this isn't an accident, this isn't something that has happened without any conscious thought going into it. Cal Newport gives this example of the New York Penny Post when he explains what the attention economy is. And he says it used to be the case that newspapers were a product. They were trying to create something high quality that people wanted to read in order to enjoy it and continue to read it and become hopefully a lifelong customer. So they would give their 3, their 4 pence a day to these newspapers. So there's a lot of effort in writing high quality articles, engaging with their audience. And then one day this newspaper called the New York Penny Post comes along, and it's much cheaper than the other newspapers. In fact, it's almost like a nominal fee that people are paying for it. And the reason is because they had a different model of business. They, instead of selling newspapers to customers, their impact was on selling the customer's attention to advertisers. So their newspaper was full of stories that were engaging and people wanted to read because they still needed people to pay attention to it. But as well as that, there was also a lot of advertising, and they made a huge amount of money. And that's essentially where we are with social media. We don't pay to use most social media, and if we do pay, it's a small nominal fee to access certain features. We are now not the consumer, not the customer of social media. We are the product of social media. Companies are buying our attention when they pay to advertise on these sites, and these sites are specifically designed to capture our attention for as long as possible. The product here is our eyeball minutes, which is a horrible phrase, but it's true. When we are spending time on Instagram, the more time we spend looking at our Instagram stories, the more adverts can be served up to us. It's the same with YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat. All of the social media websites are ad supported, and they rely on us spending as much time as possible on the app. And so what's happened is that these apps, particularly the mobile versions, have become engineered in a way to trap our attention, to keep us on there, to serve us a new dopamine hit every 2 or 3 seconds. Once you realize this, you realize that it's really altered the chemistry of our brains. And there's a really interesting idea in Nicholas Carr's book around neuroplasticity. He says that in the middle of the 20th century, it was generally thought that your brain was plastic, so it could change. The neural pathways could could change throughout your childhood and adolescence, but when you became an adult, those patterns were set, and we just live with those for the rest of our adult lives. And then they discovered that that wasn't the case at all. The brain was plastic all the way through our lives. We were able to change the way that we did things. So I think in here is some insight into not only the problem, but how we fix the problem as well. If our brains can be changed to get enjoyment and fulfillment out of this really short form, almost like super sweet content, this high fructose corn syrup of attention, of TikToks and YouTube shorts and pithy tweets with images attached, then we can make an effort to retrain and rewire our brain to actually get back to the kind of deep work and the deep attention and the deep reading that was, to be honest, the norm for people before the advent of the computer age in the sort of 90s and 2000s. I feel like I'm on the path towards doing that. I've been able to take a bit of a break from using my phone, as I said, and I'll speak about some of the really practical ways I've done that. And I've gone from sort of sitting and reading at most 5 or 10 pages of a book before needing to pick up my phone or go and do something else or put it down and look at something else. And now I'll quite happily sit on a train or in the garden and I'll read 50 pages of a book before I feel that urge to get up and do something else or put a book down. And that's really important. And also with writing as well, I would have struggled in the past to really put down my thoughts in a journal in a way that was coherent and in a way that was structured and at the pace of writing that using a pen and ink creates for you, rather than the fast typing. I've always kept a diary on a Word document, and I can type and it goes almost slightly faster than the speed of thinking, so it's quite a streamlined process. Whereas writing, it slows you down, it makes you stop, it makes you think when you're using a pen. And one of the questions around how we use our phones is about how we value our time and what we do with our lives. We are mortal beings, we only have a certain amount of time. Why do we choose to spend maybe a quarter of our social time, maybe more, maybe less, engaging with social media? Is it a valuable use of our time? Does it make us happy? Does it make us feel fulfilled? What I have been really interested in is this idea that Cal Newport has come across of the attention resistance, which is a great, very pompous name for these people. They are still using social media, so I still use social media as well. You don't feel as sort of cocooned into their ecosystem because you can switch between different tabs, but the mobile apps, they are really heavily engineered to capture your attention, to keep it there, and to make sure that you're thinking about the content and the advertising and not much else. And so these people do what he describes as precision strikes on social media. And this is something that I've been doing recently. Instead of browsing Twitter for an hour, trying desperately to catch up with everything that's happened in the day in this big uncurated timeline that has bits thrown in by the algorithm and deciding what you want to see and what you don't want to see, I've set up lists, a list for journalists, a list for politics, a list for magazines and newspapers that I like, for people that I know in real life or that I care about, and I will just review those lists for like 5 minutes at a time, and I tend to find that without all the advertising and the algorithmically added tweets and everything like that, actually a lot of these lists accrue fewer than 20 tweets a day, so they probably take me fewer than a couple of minutes to look through. The quality of them is higher, they're chronological, so I can more easily follow what's going on. And with something like the journalists or the publications, I can take those news articles, I can add them to Instapaper, which I use to collect anything that I want to read, send it in a digest over to my Kindle, and then, in the morning I can go out into the garden, have my cup of coffee, and read my Instapaper digest, rather than sit and scroll and try and read articles on my phone and make any kind of sense of them. So hopefully that explains some of the reasoning. Cal Newport says it's really important to develop a personal philosophy of technology usage. Technology has changed vastly. Nicholas Carr's book was written in 2010. It's changed hugely since then. The mobile device in our pocket, buzzing and vibrating, pinging, capturing our attention, is a much more recent invention than we probably remember. The iPhone is less than 20 years old. Barely 10 years old, and yet it has absolutely transformed our society. It has rewired our brains. It has changed our relationships to other people and to ourselves. It's taken things that used to be an everyday part of life for hundreds of years, newspapers and notebooks, and replaced them. And we need to think really carefully about that because these companies don't want us to think about that. They want us to accept that access to our Twitter feed is as necessary as access to running water or to a telephone line. And I'm just not entirely sure that's the case. So we need to come up with this philosophy of technology usage. And I find that in digital minimalism, there's a lot that makes sense. It's a really interesting topic, and it's worth going to explore those two books. How have I actually implemented these different technologies? Well, so I've sort of thought of the 5 best practical ways in which I've changed my relationship to my phone and improved my relationship with my phone. And the first of these is something called focus modes. It's a fairly new invention on iPhone. There are apps that you can use to do this on Android. Essentially, it's an extension of the Do Not Disturb app mode on your phone. It stops you from getting certain notifications from certain apps. What I really like is it gives you the ability to change the home page of your screen. So your first page when you open it up, and I have 2 modes. So I have a reading mode and a minimal mode. And the reading mode is literally just the time, the Kindle app, Spotify that I use for listening to lo-fi music when I'm reading, and the Audible app, and not much else. It's blank screen apart from that, so it avoids the temptation. And then the minimal phone is kind of my way of I'm not going to break up with my smartphone. I'm not going to buy a dumb phone and start using it. I need my phone for lots of things, from loyalty cards to train tickets. The logistics of not having a phone are just too challenging living in a big metropolitan city in 2023. So I've tried to recreate a dumb phone, but with all the features that I use on a day-to-day basis and none of the distractions. So I've got maps, I've got a city mapper, I've got my train company app, I've got access to my calendar, but I don't have on this homepage social media apps. I don't have my email, for example. And I can still open those apps when I'm in minimal mode, but I need to consciously swipe through, search for it in the search bar, and that gives me just a little pause for thought to ask, what am I doing? What am I hoping to achieve? What value am I going to get out of opening these apps? And when I first started using these, I thought the purpose of them was to consciously turn them on for a period of focus. When I'm writing or reading, that I would turn on a focus mode and then turn it off when I was done. And I've actually found that I now spend nearly all of my day with at least minimal phone mode on. You can still see the notifications that come to your phone, but they're like hidden away in a neat little place that says notifications whilst you are in minimal focus mode. I will only really go back to sort of my full featured phone if I am expecting an email or a phone call and I don't want to keep opening up my phone and refreshing and seeing what's going on there. The second tip that I have is to leave your phone behind intentionally at different points during the day. So again, I'm not advocating for getting rid of your phone, but I am advocating for taking periods of time during your day, during your week, where you are just not as engaged with your phone as you otherwise would be. So for example, if I'm reading, I will never have my phone in my pocket or on the table next to me, because it's just there as a constant distraction to say, look, why be reading when you could be watching a YouTube short? Why be reading when you could be checking compulsively the next news story that's happening? I know I get more long-term pleasure and enjoyment and become a more well-rounded person through reading, but my brain isn't necessarily completely wired in a way that balances perfectly long-term reward and short-term reward. So I need to do certain things to fix that. I also now go for walks, often in the evening or the early morning, where I leave my phone at home completely. So I'm not kind of feeling anxious about it because I'm not going very far away from my house. I might go a few streets, I might go to the beach, I might go for a walk over to the cricket ground, something like that. But I'm not going to take my phone with me because I want to focus on different things. I, for example, have started writing poetry again, something I haven't done since I was a teenager. And now, instead of my mobile phone, I bought this incredible notebook, which is from the Japanese company Midori. And I love this. I found this and I thought this is actually perfect for what I want. It has a brown leather cover and my phone has a brown leather case. So I kind of see the two objects as quite similar. It's the same size as my phone. It makes the same comforting feeling in my pocket as my phone. But now, instead of having my phone in my pocket, I have this in my pocket and I put my phone in my tote bag or in a pocket of my rucksack so that I have to make a conscious effort to get my phone out, whereas I don't have to make a conscious effort to get my notebook out. So I use this in a number of ways. One of the things that I do is that I write down my plan for the day here, so timings and any important information, so that I don't feel like I have to keep constantly getting my phone out to check information and check what's happening. I write down things that I've read or ideas that I've had that I will then transcribe into my commonplace book that I'm probably not going to be carrying around all the time. And I also have sort of little fragments of poetry or sometimes full poems, and I've written these often when I haven't got my phone with me. So last night I went to the beach, I took my book and I took this notebook with me, and I wrote a poem instead of taking photos, because that's sort of another way of capturing what's going on and using your imagination to observe and record the world around you. Number 3 is, deleting social media apps. So not deleting social media. You can still use social media if you want, and I still do, but deleting these like sugar high apps that we have, this junk food of our attention on our phones. I thought I was really reluctant. So I've not had Facebook on my phone for ages, and that's fine because, for me, it's not a big it's not a major channel of communication. It's pretty obviously just attention spam. At this point, it's just arguments and Facebook groups and adverts. But Twitter, I've used Twitter for a long, long time now. It's been really important in my career. And I was really quite reluctant to give up on having Twitter on my phone, but I did it. I deleted it 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and I don't miss it. I don't think to myself, oh, if only I could sit and look at the Twitter app for 25 minutes whilst I am waiting for this pasta to boil or something like that. Instead, occasionally when people send me tweets or I want to look at tweets, then I can just open it up in the web app on Safari to start with. And then I do these like precision strikes on Twitter that I was talking about, where I just go in and access the certain list that I want to look for. But yeah, I've sort of regained this long periods of time. I've suddenly got hours of my life back. And one of the things a lot of us say is, I'd love to learn a language, or I'd love to learn how to play an instrument. I'd love to go back to that hobby that I did when I was a teenager, or I'd love to get out more or spend more time with my family or my partner. And you can do that. There's loads of time. If you're plowing loads of time into your phone and into social media, then suddenly it opens up the time to be doing other things and to be more conscious and to do more exciting things with your life. And number 4 is about embracing paper and ink and e-ink as well. So one of the older videos that I made on this channel was all about, I've gone from being a paper guy to being a digital guy. It needs updating. I'm going to do a video soon about a balance system, which retains some elements of that kind of digital convenience and the really good systems that I've built that I still use in Notion and Instapaper and Readwise. But also having paper notebooks and having access to places to write down your ideas that's not your notes app on your phone. And it's not the case that we are going to suddenly get rid of all the digital technology that makes our lives easier and better and is genuinely useful. I love my Kindle. I'm going to make a video soon about just how revolutionary the Kindle is for someone who wants to get back into reading a lot or already reads a lot. But there's a difference. It's quite a distraction-free device. It is text on a page. It mimics the look of printed text using e-ink. It's not your phone. It's not buzzing. It's not vibrating. It's not pinging. It's not trying to get your attention into other apps. It's about being conscious about the different technology that we use. And there's a reason why humans have written using pen and paper for hundreds and hundreds of years. There's a reason why the printing press was so revolutionary when it came out. These things shouldn't just be replaced because other methods are convenient or in the short term more enjoyable to us. We should think really carefully before we get rid of these things. And then my last point is to plan what you're going to do before you pick up your phone. So because your phone is essentially a distraction device, an attention grabbing device, if we pick up our phone to do something really mundane, like check what time it is or check to see if we've got any new emails, then we get dragged into it. We think, oh, I'll just check Instagram, I'll just check Twitter, I'll have a look at Amazon and the news. And that sort of like split-second lapse in attention can become a really long period of our life in which we're not doing something that's valuable or enjoyable or really adding anything to our human experience. So I will have my phone on the other side of the room or put it away in my bag, and just before I go to reach for that phone, I ask myself, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? So if it's checking the time, I just check, put it back. And I've actually I used to wear an Apple Watch. I've taken to wearing just an ordinary watch now so that I'm not being distracted by notifications even when I'm just checking the time. Or if I want to search for something on Wikipedia, I will open up Safari, search Wikipedia, and then the key is to then turn off the phone, switch off the phone, put it onto standby and put it away. Because you do not want to get caught up in that trap of giving it your time and attention when it's not necessarily going to be useful for you. When I look at my screen time app on Apple, which is a really good and interesting app to keep on top of, I noticed that it used to be that it shows you the app that when you turn on your phone after you pick it up, the first app that you go to, and it used to be that was always Twitter, that I would open my phone, so compulsively check Twitter, go onto other apps, but now that's changed, and now it's the camera app because that's something I use a lot, or Maps, or Railboard, which is like a train app for the UK, and it just shows that I'm now using my phone as a tool. I'm using my phone as something that's genuinely helpful to me, rather than using or suppose being used by my phone as part of the attention economy. So 5 tips for helping you to kind of regain a healthy relationship with your phone, rewire your brain a little away from these short format, attention grabbing apps and companies that want to buy your attention. Let me know in the comments what you make about this and whether you have any tips for using your phone mindfully and intentionally, because I'm really interested to find out how other people use their phone in an interesting and healthy ways. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Please do remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye bye.